My name is Linda Davis, and I am the grandmother of Presley Keller. My mother's name is Elizabeth Davis, and my father is Charlie Davis. My parents met in the late 1938, and how they met is a long story. My mother was in school in Albuquerque, and my father was with the family taking care of the livestock. And so my mom had a problem with her health, and she had arthritis. So she came back home to her family, and they had to do a lot of ceremonies on her. So she couldn't really walk. She couldn't walk a long distance, or she was, barely moving around. And so they had to do some Navajo ceremonies on her to heal her. So while she was better, my father needed a ceremony done, which we call we call it squaw dance. And this ceremony had to have, the person that is sick like a man has to have a wife. So they started looking for a wife for my dad. And then, so somehow the family knew that there was a beautiful lady living in the valley, which is my mom. So they asked my grandma that, that they have seen a beautiful lady that was single, that was living in the valley, and they wanted her to marry my dad for the sake of the ceremony. And so, as a Navajo tradition, if marriage like that, the groom has to pay, example, like jewelry, livestock, sheep, horses, cows, and they have to pay the groom, bride. So my grandma just fell for it. So they just had a plan. They had to plan a wedding. So my dad family all came to my grandmother's house, resident, and my grandma and the family had to cook for the groom's family to come in. And so my dad's family gave 9 horses, and also a concha belt and a belt, and also a squash blossom. And that was what they're going to give it to my mother's family, my grandmother. So they all came with that. They brought in the horses, and then so everything had to be prepared in the hogan. All my mother's family, my aunties, my relative, they all sat in the hogan on the north side of the hogan. And so my dad's family all sat on the south side. And to have a Navajo wedding, both the bride and the groom has to be dressed up really traditional, real nice. And then they have to have a wedding basket, and also a wedding vase. They have to have a cornmeal and a corn pollen. So my father's family and relatives, they all sat down on the south side, and my mother and my father have never seen each other. They have never seen each other, and my mom was only like 13 years old, and my dad was like maybe 20. So as I know of, they were like 20 years apart. And then so my dad's family, they all sat down, and my mother and my uncle and other people had to come in with her all dressed up, and she had to carry a Navajo basket with cornmeal in. So she brought it in. She sat the left side of my dad. So they all had to do a little ceremony on the cornmeal. They put it around the basket on the cornmeal, and they had to crisscross from the east to the west, and then from the south to the north. And then this is for a good life, as we call it. That corn pollen is very sacred to us because it comes from a corn, and it has meaning to us. Like, we pray with it, and then also we use it as food source, and also we use it to food for livestock too. So corn is very essential to us. So they had their wedding, and then they had to eat the cornmeal. They had to wash their hands from each other, and then after that they had to eat the cornmeal from all direction. And then after they eat their cornmeal, and everybody from the family, from both sides of the family, they have to talk to them. They have to tell them how they will be in the future, to live as a couple, and then also as a family, and then as a family, and then also to take good care of each other, to love each other, and also they will have a good home. They will live like having livestock, and they have to really commit to each other. And so that was just how they met. And I'm so happy that this was carried on to all of us, all the daughters, and then sons, and then we are telling our kids about how my mom and dad got married in traditional way. So I'm happy that we had a mother like that, and then also a father that we love too. I was born on June the 27th, 1953. And that's not my original birthday. My mom had just selected that date for my birthday, and all she told me that it was in that time of the season. So that's how she had set up my birthday. And I was born in a hogan, which is Navajo hogan. And there was about 3 of us that were born in a hogan: myself and my sister Geraldine and my late brother Wilson. And what good thing about this hogan was that after so many years, the hogan got really old, so they used that hogan to have the sheep, have lambs in there. And so a lot of lambs were born in that tiny hogan where I was born. Our childhood home was in a small square house, and there was at least over maybe I would say 13 of us living in that little house. And we came from a poor family, like not very, very poor, but my father had worked for railroad and he traveled a lot. And he used to send money to my dad, to my mom, and the family. And so, but we live in a real small house, and we had no electricity, no running water, and also we live on like our livestock, and we had milk from the goats. We had meat from the sheep, and then also we had horses, and we did herd sheep a lot. We tended sheep and grazed them out, and we come back, and all the children at that time, we helped out a lot, like herding sheep and just helping my dad and my mom around the house with cooking and cleaning. And then my father did a lot of planting, and we had plentiful of vegetable and food that we grew. So we live on it. We live on those food. As I remember for myself, when I was a little girl in my elementary year, we went to church, and we knew that we all had to go to church, like close to like Thanksgiving, because on Thanksgiving we know that the church people, they usually have a big dinner, which is Thanksgiving. And when I remember Thanksgiving, it didn't really, I didn't really understood what Thanksgiving was about. And I just kind of like listened to the teacher and the storybook about what Thanksgiving was all about, and it really didn't have much meaning to me. It had no meaning to me. I thought, okay, the pilgrims came to the United States. Okay, that's it. And I didn't really realize myself as a native. And I thought, like natives are the ones that were like really have feathers and all that. And then when we used to watch TV, those black and white TV, and they'll have cowboys and Indian. And I used to think to myself, like we always kind of like cheered for the main actor would be, like cowboys. And we would really, support them, because I didn't even know that I was really native. And to celebrate, for Thanksgiving was just only like a feast, eating with your family at church. And then my mom used to take us to church every now and then till Christmas, because the pastor would always want my mom's name, how many kids she has, how many of us, and also she would give them our names, and then also give them our age, and then they would take the names. And close to Christmas, we know that we're going to get a big box of presents in one big box, and it will say Elizabeth Davis. So on Christmas we would go to church, and we would look forward going to church and getting all these gifts. And when we get there, they'll have a dinner, and some of the food I never had tasted, like jello and cake, and we never had that at our home. So it would be so interesting to to taste those food, different kinds of food. And when my mom gets her a big box, and we would take it back home on a wagon. And then we would get off, and we would be all excited to, you know, to get my mom to open the box and see what's inside. And then when she opens the box, you know, there'll be our name on it, like my name would be on like crayon or coloring books or soap or toothpaste or shampoo or clothes. But these things are used, though they're not brand new. Like some of the coloring book would be only like 3 pages will be colored, and then we would get broken crayons and pencils, and then also, you know, like clothes would be used, and just everything would be used, and we would appreciate that. It would be like, wow, this is good to have, because we don't have that. So, and on our birthdays, we never really celebrate, because it is just like, I don't really remember having a birthday cake made for me until maybe to tell you the truth, until I was in college. I finally got a birthday cake made for me, a surprise. But after when I graduated, that's when we kind of started celebrating birthdays. Okay, the thoughts that I have to kind of reset back what my ancestor would be thinking about the migration of the white people coming in is that I'm thinking about my grandfather and my grandma, and also my mother. What they had in mind is that a lot of the white people were coming in, like building trading posts, and then post office, and then also church. And you know, that's how I think my mom and my mom and my aunties and my uncles, and I think that's what they saw first, until more people, more white people, more Spaniard, more people, more armies were coming in. You know, I think I would say that that's when that long walk began to Fort Sumner. So my great third great grandmother is the one that went to Fort Sumner, where they were captivated. My mother, Elizabeth Davis, had a brother named Ribcage, and he wanted to enlist in the Marines, and he was like only 16 years old. And so during that time, in the 1940, which is World War II, my uncle Ribcage, he wanted to enlist, like I said. And so, but his age, you know, he was only 16, only 18 years old men, you know, can able to enlist. So what he did is he went to the post office and he got a form to enlist in Marines, and he took it to my grandmother, and my grandmother said, you know, you're not going to war, I can't let you. So he was disappointed. So he had the paper, and then he went to my grandfather, which is his father, and gave him the paper and says, Dad, I want you to put your finger on this application for me. And his dad, which is my grandfather, didn't even know what he was going to put his thumb on. So he just did. He just put his thumb on it and saying that it's all right for him to go to war. So he did. So he brought it back to the post office, and then after about a month or 2 months later, they were called and they were told that, you know, you're going to have to meet like in Fort Defiance, and you're going to all, you know, you will be going to California, San Diego, and you're going to do some training. So he left to San Diego and he did some training, and he was only 16. He lied on his age. While he was there, he didn't return. He never did return, and he was just gone. And from there on, he went to World War II. And after so many years, my grandmother got a call or got a message at the trading post, and she was told that her son Roy, they had bombed him, and he is in a critical condition, and he's in the hospital. So my grandpa had to do a prayer for him, so he can return. And so after so many months, he came back, and you know, my uncle Roy wasn't himself. He had a head injury, and he told the family that this is what happened, that you know, when I was in a war, and there was about 3 of us that were like in a hole, and I guess they were all in that hole, and they were being bombed, and then the bomb had hit like close to where they were, and I guess, as you know, like they were taught that you're supposed to hold your breath for at least as long as you can because of the fumes. And he didn't really hold his breath long enough, and he inhaled it, and then so it kind of really, well, it bothered his brain, and he was like unconscious for like maybe so many weeks. When he came, then he got better when he came back, and he did not say anything about the war. He didn't like to talk about it. He would get all angry. He would just be so aggressive to people, so nobody didn't really talk to him, ask him about the war. But he would share with who he loved, like my brother, like 2 of my brothers, and he would share the story, what he did. And all he said at one time, my brother had told us that, he said that we use our language. They train us to use our code, which is Navajo code. And we use that language to send messages, and that's how we won the war. He told that to my brother, but he said, don't ever tell anyone. If you tell someone with the federal, with the armed service, he said, they will go to prison. So you cannot say anything about it. So the family that, you know, didn't know what he was talking about at that time, until so many years later they finally told the people that they had used our language to win the war, which is, he was one of the original 29 code talker. And then so the gun that he brought back from the war. He gave it to my oldest brother, Raymond, and he still has that gun. My mother, Elizabeth Davis, as she had told us when she was young, she shared with us that she used to herd sheep, like maybe around about 7, 9 years old, and she would tend sheep, and she would always sing Navajo songs. And sometimes, you know, she would sing to the animals while she's herding sheep. She would get a can and a stick and to use it as her drum, and she would just sing to the animals. And she always told us that the sheep were her audience. And then she also shared with us that she used to listen to people singing when people are cooking, when people are cooking, also when people are sewing their clothes, or she would listen to people sing at different kinds of ceremonies, and she would instill all these songs within her. And then when she goes and herd sheep, she would sing again, you know, those songs that she had learned. And she was like always loved to sing. And in the 1980s, on the Navajo reservation, and it was barely, you know, people were beginning to group themselves and have, you know, like group singing competition and dancing. And the Chinle Valley Singers are at least, maybe I would say, the top 5 that had started the song and dance on the reservation. And so she sang, you know, as a group with all the daughters, my mother Elizabeth Davis, and Elsie Davis, Anita Davis, and myself, Linda Davis, and also Dovita Davis, which is my niece. So we were the first 5 original Chinle Valley singers, and we competed with our granddaughters. Our granddaughters had participated in these song and dance, and just like a few years ago, a lot my daughters, my nieces, they all started singing, and my granddaughters, they started singing too. So we could compete with all of them, and we had a lot of, you know, good money prize, and we had a lot of like trophies, and we just loved to sing with my mom. And we could wear a lot of jewelry. You know, my mom loved turquoise, and she always liked for us to wear traditional clothes and then traditional jewelry. So when my mom did that, and for our grandkids and myself, we appreciate my mom so much. She had all these talents that she had, and so with her talent that she had, we had traveled to at least 10 countries. We performed, you know, hoop dance, brass dance, and song and dance, and we performed also corn grinding and ribbon dance. And my granddaughter, Presley Teller, had entered, you know, with us and traveled with us to other countries. And we're just very thankful for my mom, to have that talent.